You know deep down, you are not here to build a basic brand. You are not here to blend in. You are not here to play safe or to settle for lukewarm results. But even the most powerful and successful of entrepreneurs still slip into patterns that keep them smaller than they are meant to be. Patterns that feel productive but are actually leaking your power. Habits that look successful but are actually capping your leadership, your authority, and yes, most definitely your sales. Today, I am not here to sugarcoat. I am here to hand you a mirror. If you are still doing any of the 5 following actions that I'm about to share with you in this episode, you are playing way, way too small for the life, the impact, and the brand that I know you say that you want. I know because you listen to this podcast. By the way, the 5th thing that I'm going to share with you in this episode might shock you. It's a bit of a hot take. So this episode might call you out a little bit, but that's exactly the point. Legends are not built through comfort. They're built through radical self-leadership. Let's go. Welcome to All In with Allie, the podcast for online business owners and entrepreneurs who are ready to create the life and business of their dreams. I am so happy you are here. Let's dive right in. If you are doing these 5 things, you are playing way, way, way too small. And by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, I am going to give you a little bit of homework, a little bit of bonus work, if you will, to see that you're really reflecting, that you're really listening, you're taking this seriously, because this episode is legit. I've put a lot of thought into these. And if you really do the work here, you're going to have some big, big shifts. I know this because I've done it and I've helped many women do the same. So if you're watching on YouTube, some extra credit for you is to comment on this video and let me know which of these was the most helpful for you to hear. And maybe there's more than one. Okay. So starting with number 1, these are in no particular order. If you are still trying to be quote unquote relatable, you are playing way too small. Okay? Now, you probably could have guessed, like if you've listened to this show for a minute, you probably could have guessed that this was going to be one of the things that I was going to cover. And I couldn't leave it out. I'm going to mention it every single time because even if you have heard me say this before, it bears repeating. And I want you to sear this in your soul. Okay? That is how important this is. Trying to be quote unquote relatable, and I have to keep saying it that way because relatability is subjective. Relatable to who and when and why? It is a moving, ever-changing target. It is impossible. It is a myth. It is a myth. Relatability is a lie. Okay? A lie in terms of putting it as a goal. Relatability as a goal is a myth because you're going to relate to people all the time. But when you try and be quote unquote relatable, this kills your vibe. It sabotages your creative potency. And not to mention, it just siphons and sucks out all of your energy. It is the last thing you ever need to be concerned with. You are relatable to certain people at different moments. You don't have to try to do that. But when you do, that's when we start missing the mark. That's when we start becoming inauthentic. We start giving people the ick and you start playing a zero-sum game. So the thing about relatability, like I said, it's a moving, not to mention fickle target. Somebody might relate to you today and then wake up in a bad mood tomorrow and hate your stinking guts. Do you want to know what I did the other day? This is a true story. And this just goes to show how fickle your followers can be. And this is me. I have a business. I'm probably more forgiving. I probably have more grace for the average person on social media because I know what it takes to run a brand. But I'm also very cautious of my energy. There was somebody that I was following that I've been following for quite some time. I like this person, but I'm not connected. Like, I wouldn't consider myself a friend with this person, but I followed her. I think we had some connections. It's just one of those follows that you've been following for quite some time. I like her. I like her just fine. But she posted a story the other day and she was cutting down. She wasn't, but somebody, she hired people to cut down trees in her backyard. And she was posting videos celebrating these healthy trees being cut down in her backyard. It was the fastest unfollow of my life. Zero tolerance, zero, done. I will stand beside you when you go through a midlife crisis. I will stand beside you when you make silly mistakes, when you piss me off. We can have different religious beliefs, political beliefs. We can disagree. You can like Taylor Swift. I follow a lot of people who worship the ground Taylor Swift walks on. Can't relate to save my life. Wish I could, can't. But what I will not tolerate is you being happy about cutting down healthy trees. Can't do it. And I'm not like an environmentalist. I'm a tree person. I'm a bird person. I'm a tree person. It's an unfollow for me. That is how fickle. Okay. You have people in your audience. You will wear a color shirt tomorrow and people will unfollow you because they're in their luteal phase, right? Because their husband pissed them off that morning. So my point is, trying to be relatable is the biggest time waste and energy waste you could ever waste your time doing. Do you understand what I'm saying? So imagine that poor girl who I unfollowed, who's a fine human being, by the way, I'm sure. But imagine if she was trying to orchestrate her content to appease me or people like me, right? She's like, okay, Allie's my ideal client. So let me try and be more relatable to her. I know she likes these things and I know, most of us aren't thinking of our content this way, but a lot of people are. And unfortunately, a lot of these goals to be relatable, it's not even a conscious mind thought. Nobody shows up on their social media and is like, how can I be more relatable? Well, actually, some people do. But I think it's actually more sneaky than that. I think it's minimizing yourself, downplaying your success, maybe lowering your normal volume, not sharing certain things or sharing other things to appease and relate or try and relate to a certain type of person. That's the problem. Okay? So imagine if this poor girl was trying to appease me and then here I am and she's chopping down these trees because I don't know, maybe they're bumping into her power lines. I didn't stay long enough to hear the story. Didn't care. Unfollow. Okay? That's just the mood I was in. But it's such an example of how I would say probably most of us are on any given day. And then all of a sudden, I do that. She's like, what the hell? I literally orchestrate my whole brand to appeal to you and you're that fickle. Yes, baby. That's all of us. Okay. So hurry up and get to the part where you start doing you full ass, full volume, unapologetically, and trust that whoever relates to you on this day And this season will find you, they'll love you until they don't, but don't worry, there's always going to be somebody else behind them who loves the next phase and version of you. So it's not our job to try and be relatable. It's our job to be who we are and trust that the right people will relate and stick around and hear what it is that we have to offer them. If you still feel guilty, this is the next one. If you still feel guilty about selling, you are playing way too small. If you still feel guilty about selling, you are playing way too small. Guilty, icky. This can also look like just trying to sell less or trying to sell a certain amount, feeling cringy while you're selling. Any negative emotion around selling is capping your success and is limiting you. So I actually have a really good example of this. I have a client and she helps other people find jobs. Okay. She helps people with their careers. So oftentimes her ideal client will come to her without a job. They're in between jobs in the moment. And I was talking to her the other day and she made this comment. She was like, I feel guilty because they don't have jobs. And here I am charging them to help them secure their dream job. And what I said to her was this. First of all, maybe it is a fact that they don't currently have a job, but that is a different conversation than what they can and cannot afford. And what somebody can and cannot afford is none of your business, whether we're talking about business or we're talking about life in general. None of your business. None of them. Stay out of their bank account. And the example that I gave her, I was like, imagine being really hungry. Like imagine you have not eaten all day and you stop into your favorite restaurant and they feel guilty that you haven't eaten that day, so they refuse to sell to you. You would laugh in their face, leave, and then go to their competitor and give their competitor your money. Would you not? So it's not our job to decide what someone can and cannot afford, ever. It is our job to create value and to serve, and whatever that price is, trust that as long as we are articulating what the outcome is and what the transformation is, that person who is a grown-ass adult can make a grown-ass adult decision of whether they want that thing bad enough or not. None of our business. Our job is to make the thing desirable. And with our marketing, help them understand what is in it for them so that they want to buy. So if you are feeling guilty about selling, the reason why is because you are struggling in the same way that my client was, where she was looking at her selling as taking. She was thinking, every time I promote this thing, every time I launch, I am potentially taking from my client. They are going to have to take their hard-earned money that is limited, right? Because and we all do this, but fully projecting on our ideal client. Oh, you don't have a job. Oh, you're struggling with your business. Oh, you're in this season of life. You're probably struggling. You probably have no money. You probably are a low-ticket buyer. You probably aren't very smart. Right? Like we project all of these limiting beliefs, which are, by the way, our own, onto our buyer. And then we don't sell to them because of that, or we sell less because of that. It's crazy. So yeah, if you, number one, are projecting onto your buyer and you feel as if selling to them is taking to them, of course, that's going to make you feel some type of way about selling. But also, if you don't believe in your offer, you're going to think of that as taking too, right? Like if you don't believe in what it is that you're selling, and you, to the point that you feel guilty about selling it, that's something to look at. Let's look at that. So we want to shift from selling into giving versus taking. into selling as an invitation, selling as an opportunity for our ideal client to get the thing that he or she really, really wants. If you believe in what it is that you're selling and you're fully connected to the value that you're bringing to the table and the transformation that you are helping your ideal client achieve by getting in or working with you in whatever capacity that you offer, then you'll feel really good about selling. You'll realize selling is actually a gift to him or her because you're giving them the opportunity to get what it is that they want. Look at the favorite things that you own. How grateful are you that whoever made that thing made it possible for you to buy it? Like, how often do you use your iPhone or your cell phone? I run an entire business on a phone. I am so grateful that Apple doesn't get into my bank account and project limiting money beliefs of what I can and cannot afford and what I should be valuing and what I should be purchasing. Because I promise you, in the first season of my business, I really couldn't afford an iPhone, but I got it. I figured out how to get it anyway because I knew the value that would come from having a computer in my hand at all times when trying to run a business. And that allowed me to grow my business because Apple didn't feel guilty about selling that to me. I think about like when I joined Melanie's mastermind. At the time, I was the smallest business to come into her mastermind. I paid her 4 to 5 times more per month than I had ever paid any other coach ever for 2 years straight. Imagine if when I went to join her mastermind, she had said, "Oh, Allie, oh, bless your heart. You can't afford this. How much money do you have in your bank account? You're the smallest business. You have no right to be. I know you want it really bad, but I can't sell this to you." I'd be like, okay, that's weird. And I will absolutely go find another mastermind. Thank you. But because she didn't project anything onto me, she allowed me to be a grown-ass woman to make my own financial decisions. I was able to spend my money, regardless of how much I had in the bank account at the time, in getting into her world and growing my business. Same is true for your ideal clients, okay? So our job is not to worry about what someone can and cannot afford. We are adults. That's not your kid. You're not their mama, okay? Our job is to position ourselves based on the value that we are providing, and that's it. And to help her to understand why she wants the thing and what's in it for her if she were to say yes. Next up, if you are still waiting for permission or the quote unquote right time, you are playing way too small. This is for anything. I'm going to tell you a secret of the universe right now. Are you ready? You decide the right time. That is up to you. You are given free will for a reason. Now, this doesn't mean that after you get the ball rolling, there might be some divine delays like we talked about in the last episode. If you have not listened to the last episode, go listen to that because there's going to be resistance there. And then there's going to be something called divine delay, which is where you're trying to move forward. You think it's the right time, but the universe, God's like, hey, hold on. I got something better coming for you. Just slow your roll just a bit. Okay, so we get into that in the last episode. Go listen to that. But ultimately, you decide when to get that ball rolling with certain things, especially when we are living a life by design and we're growth oriented. It takes initiation. It starts with us and our decision. So you decide the right time. You decide, or a better way to say that is you decide when you're ready. And then what you'll find is life reflects back to you what you put out. So if you are constantly going around looking for permission, somebody to say, hey, you're ready. You're finally at this level to charge this amount, to go for this thing, to start that podcast, to get in that mastermind, you're going to be waiting a long time, first of all. But if you're going around looking for that, or, again, waiting for somebody to wave some flag and say, hey, it's time. Number one, it's never going to happen. But also, you're just going to be given back experiences that kind of keep what you want at bay. Because that's the energy. You're putting out the energy of, I'm not ready. If you were ready, you'd be moving. So instead, you're just going to be getting that feedback right back on a loop for you. And that's going to be really confusing. Because then you're going to be seeing around you that maybe you aren't ready. But you ultimately decide. It starts with you. Okay? So I have so many examples of this in my own life. Right? Like when I talked about getting the Porsche, joining, big masterminds or signing big coaching opportunities, starting the podcast, down to even deciding I was ready to meet the right man and to be treated well. It all starts with a decision. And what happens is when you decide, I'm ready. I'm ready. I don't know if now is the exact time, but I'm ready to be shown and to see opportunities to help me to go to this next level, whatever that is. It starts with that decision. Always. And then come the divine orchestrations and the synchronicities and the connections, and then comes the opportunities. Some of these things will happen by accident, happy happenstances, but typically because you would put in that order at some point. You decide. So what I recommend doing here is when you are ready for that thing, declare it. Like, for example, we are seriously considering moving. I mean, we've always known we're wanting to move at some point. Like, we're not in our forever home, but we also aren't exactly sure what it is that we want yet. We're in a very interesting place. But lately, moving has been coming up a lot more. But since we don't know exactly what the next move is yet, we're just declaring that we're open. We're ready. We don't know exactly when the right time is. We're not looking for permission, but we're ready. We're getting ourselves ready for the right time. And you will know. And in every single one of those instances, right? Like the things that I just rattled off to you. Like when I ended up getting the Porsche, when I started my business, when I met Chris, when I started this podcast, there are so many big things. When I made big business pivots, it hits you. You get these opportunities to leap. And you can get more than one. But at some point, it's up to you. Again, nobody comes to you and says, hey, it's time to do this thing. You kind of put the order in, you decide, okay, when that moment hits, when it strikes, when the opportunity comes, I'm going to move on it. And then you have to move. But you got to get that ball rolling is what I'm trying to say. I think too many people are kind of sitting around doing the same thing, living the same year after year, waiting for things to go quote unquote next level, waiting for things to get taken up a notch, but they're not moving on it. They're not placing the order. You place your order with your actions, with your intentions. Next one, there are two more. If you're still not boldly positioning yourself as the expert and thought leader in your industry, you are playing way too small. If you do not think of yourself as a leader, as an expert in your field of what it is that you do, then you will not successfully position yourself as one. And that will limit you. I don't know what your industry is, but I assume this statement is true for all of us. When it comes to what it is that we do, our ideal clients are looking for an expert, regardless of your industry. Like, would you ever take your pet who is sick to an amateur veterinarian? No. If you had a toothache or you wanted to get veneers, would you go to a dentist who didn't see themselves as one of the best? Who was still quote unquote beginner? No. I know for the women that I work with, they're not trying to waste their time and risk their business potential working with somebody who isn't absolutely certain that I can help move them forward. So there are a lot of people out there, and I added this one because I know a lot of people, it kind of goes back to that permission. They're like waiting for somebody to come up to them and say, hey, you're an expert now. You can act like it. You can own it. You know, you can position yourself as one of the best, as a thought leader in your space. Either that, they're like waiting for that, or they don't even really realize what that looks like to position themselves. So notice I said, if you're not still boldly positioning yourself as the expert. If I asked you, are you boldly positioning yourself as the expert? Could you say definitively yes, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt? If the answer is yes, good. If the answer is no, why? A lot of people, they don't even realize, they don't even know what that means. And they've never even really thought about it. A lot of people are trying to run a business by acting like a quote unquote relatable influencer on the internet and wondering why it's so hard for them to get clients. Because you're trying to be everybody's business bestie. Or, you know, you're trying to be the girl, you're too busy trying to be the most likable, nice girl on the block versus the bold, confident leader of your industry. Now, if you don't see yourself as an expert because you don't have, because maybe you know in your heart, and you know in your heart that you're not an expert yet, you're not quite there, then what do we need to do to bridge that gap? That's important. So we don't want to pretend, you know, we're not, this isn't career day. You're not dressing up and cosplaying an expert in your industry. If there's a reason why you doubt yourself, why? Let's address that. That's number one. But then once you do, it's time to command that level of attention and respect. Because if you show up as that boss, as one of the best, as a leader and thought leader in your industry, people will be able to pick up on it. And it commands respect, it commands attention, and it commands trust. And then finally, here's the one that's a bit of a hot take. This one you probably wouldn't expect me to put. If you are still hitting your goals, you're playing way too small. If you are hitting your revenue or whatever goals, you are playing way too small. I rarely hit my goals. It actually surprises me and delights me when I hit a goal because I'm like, oh my God. What a surprise. What a delightful surprise that this finally happened. It's only been 3 years, you know? Like, that's the level that I'm playing. If I'm going to set a goal, it's going to be a big one. It's going to be a big one. As a matter of fact, I just had a launch, and we'll do, if you would be interested in a breakdown of this launch, I'll totally do an episode on it. Just slide into my DMs or comment on this video if you want the breakdown of my latest launch, like the details and the cash and the results, what worked, what didn't work. I just don't, if you wouldn't be interested in that, I'm not going to do it. But if you would, let me know. But I just had a really big launch. where we started with the Die Hard Client Attraction Challenge that went into Cult Brand Accelerator. And actually, as I record this, the launch officially ended yesterday. And I was running and looking at the numbers today. I had 2 goals for that launch. I had just a pretty standard goal, which was still, it was a good goal, but it was a safer one. And then I had the big goal. I was $993 off from the standard goal. Which, like, hey, okay, like, it's a big goal. So I'll take it. I'm certainly very thankful for that. But my point is I still didn't hit the goal. I didn't hit either of the goals. But I will say, if I had done this maybe a few months ago, or I don't know, like maybe if I was playing a bit smaller, I would have for sure set a different goal, and I would have surpassed that. And it would have felt good for my ego. But I'm not here to play a safe ego game. I'm here to grow. I'm here to do this at the highest level possible. So what that looks like for me in my world is you set really big goals and you allow yourself the opportunity to fail and be disappointed. It's part of it. Look at your favorite professional athlete. How many games have they lost or goals have they not met? Probably more, way more than you think an average person could ever endure. But that's what makes them great. So what I love about this and why I put this in here is because if you're hitting your goals all the time, that just goes to show that you're not setting big enough goals. Like, for sure, you're playing too small. But when you set these bigger goals and you allow yourself the opportunity to not hit them and maybe be a little embarrassed or have a little ego flare, whatever it is that you might be afraid of, what happens is you overshoot, right? So you end up, like I said, like I ended up doubling what maybe a standard goal would have been in this last launch. But because I went really big, I didn't hit that goal, but I surpassed like the basic goals that probably a normal person would have set. Okay. So you end up earning or receiving or making more happen when you live by this. But the caveat is you have to be okay with not hitting it as often because you're playing at a bigger, higher level. So in summary, if you are still trying to be freaking relatable, still feeling guilty about selling, waiting for permission or quote unquote the right time, not boldly positioning yourself as the expert in your industry, and if you are still hitting most of your goals, you are playing way too small. Way too small. Okay? And you didn't come this far to only go a fraction of the way and live to a fraction of your potential. Lock it up and lock it in. So I would love to know, put it in the comments wherever you're watching or slide into my DMs, which ones of these hit you the hardest, which one was an aha moment for you, which one was the most helpful. Let me know. If you want to take a screenshot and share this in your stories, I would be so happy to see that. I hope this was helpful for you, and I will see you here next week. Bye.